good evening and welcome. Tonight we'll be going over the history and geography of Zambia. And usually after I flip through a book to show you some pictures, this book has, despite being called Zambian pictures, not that many pictures, so I'll whisper parts of this book to you tomorrow. So after I go over the history, I'll grab my tablet and we'll look at some Google Earth. So starting with geography, and yes, I have toppled the elephant here to be my little prop. Zambia, as you can see, is a landlocked country located in southern Africa. Get my pencil. It has this long border with the Democratic Republic of the Congo. It has a border with Tanzania and Malawi and Mozambique. It has this border with Zimbabwe, which we're going to talk a lot more about in a minute. It has a very teeny tiny border with Botswana right here. And then it borders Namibia right here. And then Angola. So let's talk about this down here, because this is the Zambezi River. One of the more famous rivers in Africa, mainly because of Victoria Falls, which is one of the most beautiful waterfalls in the world. It's on the cover of this book. It's pretty spectacular, but I'll show you on Google Earth. It's absolutely stunning. Also down here in the south, we have Lake Kariba, which is a really, really big lake shared with Zambia and Zimbabwe. The Kariba Dam is right here, the town of Kariba, which is a hydroelectric dam to give electricity to as much of Zambia as possible. And as you can see on the map here, there's not much happening over here. There's not much happening over here. It's all in the center is where most of the population lives. You can see all the big cities. So why is that? It's mainly due to this region up here where you can see there's a big cluster of cities. It's a big urban place right here because there are massively huge copper deposits here. The province here is called Copperbelt, and there's lots and lots of copper mines. Then flowing down through here is the Kafue River, which is the longest river in Zambia, flowing all the way down here. And here we can find the capital city of Lusaka. It's another really big city. So it's more like, this is like the governmental center. I mean, it's still a big city. It's very beautiful. But like all of the industry mostly happens up here. So what's happening on these empty sides? Zambia is mostly on a plateau. The only low areas are near the rivers where they reside in very deep canyons. I'll show you also on Google Earth. So mostly up here is just plateau, flatlands, perfect for like grazing animals or farming, things like that. Same over here, but it's a lot more hilly. You can see this big mountain chain slicing right through here. This is the Muchinga Mountains. And you know, they are big, but they're not like the Andes, you know, they're not like huge mountains. Most of them are around 2,000 meters, and the highest is called Mafinga Center, and it's about right here, so it's shared with Malawi. Also, you can see that the major lakes are all on borders. They're all shared with other countries, so Lake Kariba shared with Zimbabwe, Lake Mweru shared with the DRC, and this is Lake Tanganyika. I don't know. Anyway, Lake Tanganyika is up here, and it's shared with Tanzania. And there's a really beautiful waterfall right up here called the Colombo Falls, which is the second highest waterfall in Africa. Again, like I said, all the rivers are in these deep canyons, so there's a big drop right there heading into the lake. So it's really pretty. Again, I'll show you all the wonderful things on Google Earth. So for the most part, very grassy, very plains. But there are some swampy areas, mainly around here. This is Lake Bangweulu, and there's a big swamp around it. There's also a couple of swampy areas around here, but like I said, for the most part, there are big national parks with all of the wonderful African animals you can imagine. Pretty much the big five, and these guys over here. Little elephants, my favorite. And let me just check my notes, make sure I got everything. I believe so. Very interesting country, lots of beautiful sights to see. So getting into history, we're actually going to start up at the Colombo Falls. And up here, there's some signs of very, very early man. There's been campsites and tools, things like that found up there. But the main, most famous ancient artifacts from like prehistory, caveman times, was found near Kabwe. And it's a skull that's known as Broken Hill Man. It's one of those famous early like skeletal things. Kind of like Lucy, but he's just a head that's all been found, and it's believed he was Homo erectus, but I guess there's not enough of his body found to determine it. But he was, he lived around 300,000 to 125,000 BCE. So there have been people here for a long time, pretty much since the beginning of time, to be honest. So this area was mainly populated by Khoisan or Batwa or Twa tribes until the Bantu migration swept through about the year 300 CE, mixed in with the peoples here, the ones that didn't leave when new populations came in, and created the various Zambian cultures. There's so many, guys. There's the Tonga, I remember right off the top of my head, but there's a whole bunch. Too many to mention, to be honest. That's why I didn't write them all down. But essentially, we have the Great Zimbabwe Kingdom down here in Zimbabwe. And then right over here is the Swahili coast in Mozambique. And a lot of trade happened here. So quite a few kingdoms sprang up in Zambia that took advantage of those trade routes, and they traded with the Shona peoples down here in Zimbabwe, Great Zimbabwe. They traded with the Swahili people, and the Swahili people traded with Arabs, so they wound up getting various things from the Arabs, and the Arabs would come and very sadly take slaves to take back to the Arab world. But those trade connections were there, and they were very, very strong. And there were many different empires and kingdoms that overlapped into Zambia. Again, a bit too many to mention, but the main dominant one was known as the Luba Kingdom. That was around up here, mostly in the DRC, but in parts of Zambia as well. There's also the Mutapa Empire, kind of more in the south, I believe, down mostly in like Mozambique, Zimbabwe. There's also the Barotse Kingdom, which is the home of the Lozi peoples. It's going to be important in a minute. But these peoples were quite displaced over the centuries by the Portuguese coming in. The Portuguese controlled Angola and Mozambique, so they claimed this area, even though it was very hard to get into in the center. And the Zulu, once they started getting pushed out of their land in South Africa, a very warlike people, so they went conquering wherever they went. It was a big deal in this corner of the world. It displaced a lot of people, so it also happened up in Zambia. So there was a bit of shuffle there, a bit of mixing of other cultures as well. Meanwhile, in 1855, David Livingstone came by, and he spotted Victoria Falls and thought it was the most beautiful thing, so he named it after Queen Victoria. And you can see the town here of Livingstone. There's lots of monuments and things to him there. In 1888, this area was claimed by a man named Cecil Rhodes. He was an Englishman, a businessman who wanted to build a commercial empire in southern Africa. So he controlled what's now Zimbabwe. He called it Rhodesia after himself. And the northern area was mainly known as Barotse land, which is why I mentioned the Barotse Kingdom. who would later become known as Northern Rhodesia. And he was really big in the mining / diamonds industry. Mostly down here in what's now Zimbabwe, but in parts of Zambia as well. So in order to exploit the people here, he started charging a hut tax. And the people here are like, we're like herders and farmers. Like, we don't have money to give you. So he was like, well, I guess you better get jobs. And the only jobs in the area were in his mines. So they would go to work for Cecil Rhodes so they could pay taxes to Cecil Rhodes. Pretty evil concept, to be honest. And it was his company that found the copper deposits up here in 1895 and kickstarted that big copper industry, which really helped out the prominence for the British Empire up here. Not so much the people, because they were forced to work in really horrific conditions with very little reward, but the British saw this area as valuable now. So in 1911 it became a protectorate. That's when it officially became Northern Rhodesia. It became a colony in 1924, and in 1953 the British joined what's now Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Malawi to form the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. So this was Rhodesia, this was Nyasaland. There's like Nyasa, hence Nyasaland. And you know, the people here still felt pretty like left out in a way, because there was a lot happening mostly down here. This was where all the money was being made and where all the profits from their copper was going. So various political parties formed over the years. Toward this time, they became independence movement parties, the most prominent one being the United National Independence Party, or UNIP. That was led by a man named Kenneth Kaunda. So once independence was finally gained on October 24th, 1964, he was elected president. His party was the big prominent party. And things were decent in Zambia. They were okay. They got a lot of Chinese investment in the copper mines, and the Chinese returned the favor by building a lot of infrastructure, hospitals, and a big railroad that went into Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, so that Zambia could have some better connections to the ocean, better for shipping out all that copper. Really helped out the economy here. But this was a very tumultuous corner of the world. There was a lot going on in Angola. There was a violent movement in Namibia, and Zimbabwe was the biggest mess of them all. Not to mention apartheid was in full swing down here in South Africa, which of course Zambia opposed, which led to the people in charge of South Africa not being very happy with Zambia. And it was just very chaotic outside the borders of Zambia. You know, people coming into the country to escape. Later, when the DRC would have its conflicts, there'd be people crossing the border to escape that. Just a lot happening around Zambia. So it was just kind of doing its own thing, mining its copper, until in the 1970s the price of copper plummeted and the economy tanked. And, you know, that leads to lots of unrest and horribleness. It was also around this time that Kaunda decided to make Zambia a one-party state, with, of course, his party being the One Party, which people didn't like. There were lots of protests. So the corrupt government mixed with the very poor economy and everything kind of falling apart, the country going into debt and all of that, led to many big protests and a big riot in 1990 and even a coup attempt. So Kaunda agreed to multi-party elections and he got voted out. He probably did that thinking he would win, but he did not. And since then, the government has been on more of the up and up. There's still lots of accusations of corruption, but not nearly as bad as other places around this corner of Africa. And in the 2000s, the price of copper went back up, and Zambia was able to start profiting off of that again. they also had a lot of their debts forgiven and a lot more foreign investment coming in. So a lot more coming back into Zambia. It's also about the time they went all in on tourism around Victoria Falls and the various national parks. There's some luxurious, like glamping in some of these parks. It is like 5-star treatment. Very, very beautiful. You can like recline in luxury while you look at lions and giraffes in the distance. It sounds wonderful, but in a nutshell, that's about it for Zambia. Let me grab my tablet and set that up so we can look at the very beautiful pictures of Zambia. Alright, here we have Zambia. Let me zoom it out so you can kind of see where it is in the world. Ta-da, right there. And of course it opens up with an absolutely stunning picture of Victoria Falls. Look at that. I always think of it as like if the Grand Canyon had water pouring off the side of it. So here is Lusaka. There's a hippo butt. There's the Kariba Dam. Big, big, big dam, as you can see. There's a little beast of some kind, a little wildebeest or buffalo. Beautiful lion. Sweet elephants. Some of the city, some of the glamping. Isn't that beautiful? Can you imagine sleeping there? It's fantastic. There's the big waterfalls. And as you can see, very big, very modern city. And there's the big bridge over by the Victoria Falls. What else can we see? Sweet elephants, the dam, lions. Isn't that gorgeous? The big rainbows. The rainbows being like a big characteristic of the beautiful waterfall here. So let's check out Zambia. Let's start off down here at Victoria Falls. Let's take a look at it from the sky. Victoria Falls. So you can see the Zambezi River at this point gets really, really wide. Like really wide. Like really wide. And then it just cascades down. There's this really interesting river effect here, and apparently it's from how the water would go over the edge, erodes the land, just collapses it, and the falls get pushed further and further back. So like looking from above, you can kind of see where like the next one's gonna be cut in. So like all of this will collapse one day and the new waterfall will be here, and then there'll be a zag there. Very interesting. But let's look at the 3D view so you can see. Isn't that remarkable? Just a big gash in the land with water pouring down the sides. It's so pretty. Let's look at a couple more pictures. Victoria Falls. Even though we've seen a bunch of them. See, look at that. Isn't that remarkable? Oh, that's so cool. Its original name is Mosi Oatunya, which means smoke that thunders, because of all the smoke around it, all the water coming up. Apparently at certain times of the year, if you come here and you stand on a certain side of the waterfall, you will get drenched because of all the water sprays. And another famous thing about it is that on the full moon, when the moon shines on it, there are moonbows. If I remember, they talked about it on Welcome to Earth on Disney Plus, National Geographic, but I think it's the only place in the world where that actually happens, I want to say. It's anytime I hear about moonbows, they talk about Victoria Falls. David Livingston said, "Scenes so lovely must have been gazed upon by angels in their flight." All right. That is spectacular Victoria Falls. And you can see the river winding down into these deep canyony areas, right? Isn't that something? Like, look how long this river has been cutting into the rock, cutting and cutting and cutting. It's no wonder it made that dramatic waterfall, right? Let's check out Lake Kariba, which is not too far away. So yeah, anyway, here we go. Big, beautiful Lake Kariba. And yeah, pretty remarkable place. There's the dam. Very cool. And it's a big, big lake, you know? If they hadn't shared it with Zimbabwe, it would definitely be like the biggest lake in Zambia. Like, it's huge. It looks a lot bigger than it looks on my little map, right? Let's go check out more of the cities. I'm going the wrong way. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. I am going the wrong way. Boom, boom. There we go. So up here is Lusaka. Big city area, which, I mean, it's just like a major metropolis area, right? Metropolitan area, I mean. And then up here, up in the Copper Belt, we can see lots of mining spots, right? You see them all? Pretty easy to see from above. The area getting mined for copper. What else can we see? National Park. So you can really kind of see from above how it's more of a plateau, and then it just kind of drops off near the watery area. So let's look at the waterfall up here. So check this out. You got to see this in 3D view. That's the best way to see it. Oh, I hope I don't lose it now. There it is, Colombo Falls. So this river is in a deep canyon. Like, look. Colombo River. To be able to see like how deep this gorge is. It comes into here and just drops off this cliff. Check that out. It is so steep. So let's see pictures of Colombo Falls. There's lots of little tourist pictures here, but there's one really pretty picture in here. Like, see, I'm trying to show you guys how deep the canyon is. It's like that. Very beautiful. And it's clear they've made it very accessible so people can come check it out. Let's see. I want to show you this neat. There we go. Isn't that stunning? Just a cheap, deep drop. Pretty much. Then we can, let me zoom back out so I can get my bearings here. Oh, you know why? Because I'm in, there we go. There we go. Now I can figure it out. Kind of the swampy, marshy area you can see from, stop. You can see from above up here how it's very wet. And there's the big lake. Also kind of a touristy place too. So anyway, that's about it that I wanted to show you for Zambia. Really beautiful country. Again, really big on that tourism aspect. So it's a very safe country to come visit and look at elephants and lions and all those wonderful African animals. And yeah, Southern Africa is just a very, very beautiful place, isn't it? I love it. Anyway, that's going to be it for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'll do that whisper video for you tomorrow with that book. And here we go. Let's find a random place to look at. How about some animal pictures? Oh, there we go. Beautiful. I hope you found this video relaxing and educational. And I hope that you have a very good Good night. Good night.